Kat Butler, welcome to the Anatomy Clay Learning System podcast.
Hi, Mark. Thank you so much for having me.
Great to have you on. You are based in San Francisco, correct?
That is correct.
And you've been there for quite a while, I gather.
Yes, I've lived in San Francisco for the past 30 years.
You've seen some changes there as well, probably.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so.
Are you right downtown?
No, I live in the DeVos Triangle.
Okay.
So sort of the upper market area, really beautiful area of San Francisco.
Nice.
Yeah, very fortunate to be here.
Yeah, I want to start with, and we'll get to your connection with Anatomy and Clay down the road here a little bit, but I want to start out with a little bit about you and your company and what you do and what kind of services you offer. But maybe just for starters, can you just talk about that, your youth and training? Was this something, getting into body work, was this always in your future? Was it something that was going to happen, or was this something that happened later on?
It was something that happened later on. And it definitely was one of those things where it sort of happened organically and over a series of kind of interesting paths that I took through my career and through life in general. I was a personal trainer for a while. I trained as a personal trainer. I was also in San Francisco. I ran security. I was a bouncer. I used to run all the nightclubs here for many, many years. Yeah, so the training came in very handy for that job. And through the years and through different friends of mine and people who I've experienced going into the bodywork field or the Chinese medicine field, I was very inspired by what they could accomplish with the least invasive techniques, not doing surgical techniques, but using the body's own systems to actually heal itself. And I just thought that was absolutely amazing. So,
was there one particular moment or person or book or something?
It was so funny because it was a woman who was a friend of mine, Angela, and she was going to CIIS here in San Francisco, and she was studying Reiki. And I remember I was running security at this facility, and I was outside of this place, and I would see her, and we would have a chat every now and then. She'd come by, and I'm like, "Oh, well, how are you, Angela? What are you doing?" She's like, I'm studying Reiki, and I'm going to start working on people with Reiki. I'm like, "Really? What is that?" And she's like, "Well, it's energy healing." And I was like a light bulb went off in my head. And I heard this, I'm not kidding. I heard this voice like, "You need to stop what you're doing and you need to do this now." And I was like, oh, it was one of the voices where you hear it. And if you don't do it, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. Wow. So yeah, it was like an aha moment. And I thought, oh my God, that's a real modality. That's a real thing that people are doing. And so when I looked into it, the massage is what came up, and I'm like, okay, this is how I'm going to pursue this particular way of healing people. It's amazing. I just never looked back after that. I signed up 2 weeks later for massage school. Yeah.
And you tossed your last person from a club.
I did.
Yeah.
Now I just toss them on the table and take care of them that way. So
yeah, we'll get to that. So how long ago was that then?
This was probably, God, now about 9 years ago or so.
Okay.
Something like that. Yeah. So fairly recent in its own right,
The idea of the body's own energy, can you trace some interest back prior to that? Were you always somebody open to new ideas along those lines?
So, we're all made of energy. That's what we are. We're energy beings. I am very much interested in the science behind these things, right? It goes with the type of artwork that I create. I like to mix science, art, mathematics, quantum physics. All of it to me is very much in the same realm with different titles. And having the experience that I've had with body work and people and studying the science behind the energy And combining that, the effects are amazing, but it's also vibration. We all work on a certain vibratory, tone. The whole universe works on vibration. So when you hit that sort of tone with another human with intent attached to that, I mean, the results are profound. The changes are profound. It's the intention, it's the vibration, meeting people at a certain level. And the reason why I really brought up sort of the security aspect of my career was holding your space, holding ground, right? I know how to create a presence that will keep people either at bay or bring them to me. So it was like training for years and years and years of observing people, knowing what their energy is telling me before the situation can escalate and how I can de-escalate it. So it was very interesting combination of skills coming together in that way.
Fascinating. And I'm going to say right now, I'm on Zoom, I'm 1,000 miles away, but I can sense what you're saying.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
Wow. So, okay, you touched on a lot there. When was the art woven in? Were you an artist have you been trained as an artist as well?
So I've always been an artist. As a very young person, I was very, very interested in hyperrealism and detail. I'm not trained professionally. I mean, well, I didn't go to school to be an artist, but I've trained myself over the years. So I'm self-taught. I'm a self-taught artist. I'm very gifted. My dad was very artistic, so it kind of got that from him. But it's being an artist is definitely something that you just are. It's just something who I've always been. And it's something that I've pursued professionally, and I have sold professionally at galleries. I've been shown at galleries. I've had, many, many different experiences with that over the years as well. One of the reasons I did the night security is so I could paint in the daytime.
Oh, wow.
Right. So that was the balance that I was trying to hit with that.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. I have to ask a personal question because
Certainly.
I do, and that is, it's a complete detour, but maybe not. Who knows? You never know where this will lead. Given all the clubs, are you a music fan, or did you get to see a lot of music, or was that just you're outside the door and not necessarily getting?
Oh, no, I got to see a lot of performers. Yeah, okay. We had a really huge, I mean, this was back in the 90s with the big clubs, 3,000 people a night, kind of nightclubs, but we had Prince perform and Cyndi Lauper, Grace Jones. So a lot of really, really fun artists.
Now those people understand that we're all energy.
Yeah. Very much so.
Prince probably knew we were all built of energy.
Definitely.
Yeah. When you bring in new clients and you present this concept to them, and or as you go about your day and world and see people, do you find that most people sort of take their bodies for granted?
I don't know.
Maybe you don't want to generalize, but
no, it's not, I wouldn't say necessarily that they take them for granted. I think that they just don't understand their own bodies. Right. So I think the frustration comes from just not understanding why they are feeling this way. They understand the fatigue and this and that, but the emotional component is what's missing with people understanding what's happening with their own body. And that is what we work with when I have people on the table, because I do very slow, very deep shifting work. I mean, we are basically trying to realign their body in gravity. It's called structural integration. It is painful. We have to go through the journey together, and emotional memory will come up. I will all of a sudden get to one area. I'll feel it in my own body, be like, this is something that it kind of feels old to me. And I think it's going to be pretty intense. So hang on. And some people will spontaneously cry. Some people get really angry. And then they'll express like, my God, I just remembered something that happened to me when I was younger. And I didn't realize I was holding on to that thing. And so letting go of that is part of the process that we work with. And I just think that people don't understand that all these emotions that we go through, all the trauma that we go through is in our own body, and it stays there. Your body is trying to protect you. It's holding these things for you. It's telling you, okay, you can't deal with this right now. So I'm going to take this and I'm going to put this way down, as far away from your internal organs, into your calf muscle, right? Or I'm going to put this into your lateral quad, and we're just going to keep it there because I don't know how to process this for you. Your body speaks in a different language. That is what we don't understand. The language is vibration, right? So getting those vibratory tones back to a level where they can function, and getting rid of that which does not serve you, right? This does not serve you. And that's what your body is trying to say. Okay, we can't deal with this right now. We're going to leave it here. And I'm going to turn the pain sensors on. But if you don't listen, then I'm just going to go numb. And then you're going to feel worse and worse, and it's going to travel through your system. So that's part of it. You have to sit and deal with your emotional body. So it's a big deal.
It's a very big deal. Wow.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've kind of jumped ahead, which is absolutely fine to that. I don't know if you call them treatments. Do you call them treatments?
Oh yeah, of course.
Okay.
Sessions,
I
bodywork
just want to make
sessions. Yeah.
sure I use the right lingo. But do you also then have the physical work can turn into a conversation as well?
Oh, always.
Yeah.
Always. Yeah. Oh, yes. Because it's so intense, because it can be so profound. We talk a lot of times. We just sit and talk. It's not like a massager coming to relax. That is not what we're doing at all. Not at all. So people are forewarned before they come to my practice. They're like, okay, this is not for relaxation. This is for seriously realigning yourself and getting yourself functional again. So
it's not restorative yoga.
No, but that's part of afterwards, right? We're freeing the body of all these really deep connections and things that don't serve them anymore. And then all of a sudden they feel lighter and freer and can start the restorative yoga or whatever workout. And I always pair these routines with a workout or send them videos and say, look, this is what you can do to take care of yourself. This is all really so people can take care of their own bodies, which you can do with foam rolling, with the Theracane, with all sorts of really simple tools, so it's teaching them how to take care of the body.
Yeah. Wow.
Yeah.
So you mentioned early on meeting the first sort of approach and Reiki. Is that pronouncing it correctly?
That's correct. Yes. That's a completely different practice. I am certified in Reiki, but that is for people who come in specifically like, I want a Reiki session. That's very different. That's all bringing energy and holds and things like that. It's not the really intense, removing of layers. Just it's a removal of layers, but it's a gentle way of removal of layers, right? We don't get the physical, muscles releasing and such.
Right. Yeah. On your website, you list the different services that you provide. Mm-hmm. Could you kind of walk us through just briefly what each one of those are?
So basically, when people come to me, like I said, they've already been prepped. I'm a referral-based practice usually, so I don't advertise. I don't put it out there because people need to know what they're getting into for this. A typical session will be someone coming in. Okay, what's going on? Do we have old injuries we're dealing with? Is there surgeries that you're being prepped for that you would like to try to avoid? What do we need to do, to try to avoid anything more serious in the future, or just to deal with what's plaguing them right now? So it's very deep, very slow work. For example, I use lots of forearms, right? And again, it's the energetics that we're talking about here. So when I actually make contact For example, with someone who's laying in a side lying position, I make contact with the IT band, vastus lateralis, the leg. That's where a lot of these tightness occurs because people are sitting so much. Some people can have such a huge reaction just by the energetics of me putting my arm there, because I'm hyper focused on what we're doing, that they'll start shaking immediately and things will start to release. And what I do is I listen to what the body's telling me and I follow so slow. And then all of a sudden the pop, right? The muscles will open. So I can actually separate each individual quad. Sometimes the quad is wrapped up to the opposite side of the leg and it'll snap back. So it's really interesting. It's really interesting. That's why the anatomy is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. This is full body. This is your body fully
Engaged with them.
engaged. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
On a mat, on the floor, on the table.
On a table.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I have a chair that I use sometimes. I use it for my pregnant clients. And but these are clients that have been coming to me for years. I wouldn't recommend like someone who's pregnant to come.
Yeah.
Because they know what to expect. So
Yeah.
we get some great results with that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I assume it's also a very powerful experience for you emotionally too.
It is one of the best things I've ever done. I mean, it really is just so uplifting for me to be able to do this for someone. All of the weird things that I've done in my life have come to this wonderful point where it's like, okay, I can use all of these skills to help people. And it's beautiful. It is the most beautiful thing. I will never, ever want to ever quit doing this, because you see someone who is so downtrodden and just all these things are happening and they come in and we release all these things and my God, I didn't realize this was happening to me. So humans, we need each other. We just do. It doesn't matter who you are. We are vibrational beings, right? And we need each other to heal each other. So it's wonderful.
That's great.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about your own anatomy training? How did that come about?
So, of course, in massage school, we did our basic anatomy courses, which were good. They were very good. But for me, I'm extremely detail oriented and I wanted to immediately know more, right? I remember when we were first in class and they brought out the anatomy chart, they're like, you will memorize all of these things. And we're like, oh God, no, it looks so daunting. And now, because I touch them every day, because I'm working with people in such a deep level, I have to know where things are. So I have actually gone and done the 1 week skin to bone dissection courses in Colorado Springs. So I've actually gone to the Institute for Anatomical Research there and taken those courses, and fresh cadavers. I mean, these people have donated their bodies for this, and the whole week just taking apart the body. It was the most incredible thing. I mean, I don't think that was another point in my life where I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to be the same after doing this.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I do the really intense learning because it's important.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Wow. And when did you come across Anatomy and Clay? Do you remember?
Yeah, I do actually. I think I was looking for a skeleton for my office, and I was like, oh, just kind of browsing through the internet, and then one of the models popped up. I was like, oh my God, what is this? And then I saw that they had the classes. I'm like, oh, sign me up. This looks absolutely fantastic. And right down my alley. We have the art, we have the model, we have the internal organs that we're working with, the nervous system, the lymphatic system. And to learn something from the inside out that way is fantastic, right? So it's just, for example, when you're working with a cadaver, there's a lot going on. It is absolutely mind-blowing. But it's also, they're not like, oh, look, here's this giant point where I can see where this does this. It's all blended. The body is
Yep.
one unit. So with
Mhm.
this, it's like, oh, great. You know, I can work from the inside out and have a better understanding. For me, because I'm so tactile, you know, art, touch, I need to be able to get in there and touch it. And then I'll have a better understanding and I'll never forget it. So.
And what was that class and where did you take it and how did it go? You took an
Oh,
anatomy and clay class?
I did take the anatomy and clay class. I did it in Chicago.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, which was a lot of fun. And I had actually purchased the Albinus model previously, pre-COVID, and was going to take a course. And then that had, obviously everything got canceled. So the reason I really went to this particular one was to learn how to use that model,
Mhm.
because it, you know, it has all these different landmarks. And I was like, well, if I get a better understanding of that, then I can work on this larger model. And it was great. It was fantastic. It was just so fun to see all the different kinds of people that go to these kinds of
Yeah.
events, you know?
Yeah, yeah. So just putting your hands on the clay, a different learning process for you than,
Yes,
yeah.
yes, very much so. One of the things I really found useful for me was doing the muscles, the striations down the muscles, right? Once you had them formed, and I did the little tendons and everything, the attachments. Once you do the striations, it's wonderful because you could see, for me, I could see the movement, what the possibility in each individual muscle movement would be on a different level, right?
Yeah.
On more of a, or just a holistic
Mhm.
level. So I loved it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You must understand better than anybody why, or, that connection between the hands and the brain and
Yes.
how. So what is your explanation? Why is it that if we put our hands on something, that our brain takes it in a different way than a lecturer at the front of a classroom walking us through some list of facts?
I think it's because of just the intense way that our hands are created anatomically. The sense of touch is so, there's nothing like it in the body, right? There's nothing else like the tips of the fingers, even the bottoms of the toes, the way that they're formed. It actually records much quicker, and it's supposed to. That's how we've evolved to touch. We touch things, we understand them. That's, again, we're touching on the energy of things, right? So like a fingerprint, you look at the fingerprints, everyone's fingerprint is completely different. Those fingerprints in between these grooves, that's where data is recorded, right? Boom. I just picked up that. I'll never forget that. That's energy. That's this, that's that. So yeah.
That's great. I've never really heard it explained that way. That makes a lot of sense to me. And then on the other hand, I'd flip it over and say, okay, if touch is that important, if from what I gather from your treatments, the way you have to train your whole body to learn how to touch.
Yes, yes,
So,
exactly. So every body worker has their primary tool, right? So I use hands a lot for neck work, really detail work, which is funny because that's what I do with my art. Very detail. Everything's very detailed with the fingers. This is what we call the heavy duty. This is the heavy tool.
and you're pointing
The
to your elbow.
forearm, right?
For those might be listening to the podcast, you're pointing to your elbow.
Yeah, my forearm.
Forearm,
So
sorry.
on the forearm, it's interesting because when I first started working, I noticed that I could pick up these energies really quickly from the forearm. And I used to laugh and tell my clients, my secret weapon is I have 2 cracks in the bone at the bottom of the elbows, right? From a motorcycle accident years ago.
Oh no.
And it's a long time ago. But so because of these little grooves that I have at the bottom of my elbows here, it's like I can actually pick up energy a little bit better through the bone, which is interesting.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean, tell us about some other, you use your forearms, you use your hands for the neck. Give us some other.
So forearms, hands. I basically use my entire body when I work on people, because I will lift legs, move them. I will rest them on top of my leg. I move constantly. So I'm doing a lot of what you would consider sort of osteopathic work as well, with the moving the range of motion in the joints and being able to pick up the legs and move them around. And so I use my entire body. Sometimes I'll get a hold of someone and just be holding them, and then, just sitting on a muscle, and the muscle is just, it will sit, it will vibrate, and then it'll let go. So you kind of have to encompass the whole person when you do this work with your own body. It's fascinating.
There's a fair amount of intimacy, I would imagine.
Oh, yes, definitely.
Not for the shy.
No. And even for people who feel a little shy to begin with, it's the intention, right? They come in there and I'm like, all right, this is not going to be easy. This is going to be difficult. I'm going to come onto spots. I'm going to know that you're going to be hypersensitive, but we're going to work through this together. And we don't have to have that communication out loud, because our bodies are working together, right? The energies of the body understands. I am not coming there to harm them. I'm coming there to help them. That is what we're dealing with. So people who come in a little shy, that gone, right? It doesn't have to be that way, because we're dealing with a different level of communication here. We're dealing with the body's communication. That is way more advanced than ours. So I've never had an issue with that, which is really interesting. I can tell when people are hesitant when they come in, and then I'm like, it's just going to take a minute, and then they'll melt, and it's like, okay. Yeah.
Do you think you've had to develop different tactile skills, and maybe your body has changed as a result of doing all this work?
Oh, yes, definitely. Yeah. Like I said before, I did personal training, and I lift, right? I lift heavy weights. I've always have over 20 years. So I work out constantly. I have to work out in the morning before I go work on anybody. I have to lift and keep myself very, very strong to be able to do this kind of work. But energetically is different, right? You have to build up this protection around yourself, so you don't pull all of their emotion into yourself. That's a different kind of armor that you have to pick up. But that armor was already established with me, because I did the security for so many years. I already had that emotional protective barrier of being able to hold space. That's what it is. We're holding a sacred space for people to heal. So.
Wow. Yeah. That's powerful.
Yeah.
Would you make a better bouncer today than you did back then?
Oh, I don't know if honestly, I would probably be so irritated with it. I'm too old for that now, but probably, in a way, but my way back then was the same as it is now. I was always very open and welcoming, but, at the same time, don't try it, so. Yeah.
Wow. Well, I assume that in those situations, alcohol and other substances don't help.
That's exactly it. That's exactly it. Yeah.
So I wanted to ask you about the artwork you've got online as well, because you mentioned your art. Can you walk us through what was your motivation for the Embodied Being series in particular, and tell us what they are. Maybe on the video I'll drop in just some images, but what was the inspiration?
So the inspiration for the Embodied Beings collection was my interest in learning anatomy much more in a detailed way. So again, like we had touched on before, learning with the hands and creating things with the hands. My art is the way that I travel through the experiences and in my life. right? So every collection that I have created is something that has been relevant to me at the time, something I was curious about and wanted to explore more. So this particular collection, I thought, well, I can create sort of a typical anatomical collection, but it'd be kind of boring. I like to make it more interesting for the viewer. So I decided to go and do research on really famous Greek gods and Greek sculptures that are well known throughout the world. And the concept was to keep it in a contemporary fashion, in a more of a modern art way, without it being disturbing, because a lot of times people, when they see so much of the muscle tissue and the red, it looks a bit daunting and like, ooh, oh, it's a little gruesome. But when you add it with these statues, it's like half is stone, half is the anatomy. So it's almost easier to digest, as it were.
Yeah.
And it makes it more interesting because you're also dealing with figures that people are very familiar with. So when you add the familiarity plus the anatomy, people are generally more interested because they understand it. If it's pure anatomy and they don't understand anatomy, it can be a little bit like, oh, I don't need to be looking at that because I don't, I'm not a doctor, or I'm not, working with that most of the time. So it was a collection created for myself to better understand the anatomy, to detailed anatomy, because I knew if someone looked at this, they're like, oh, that's not right, that they would call me out on it. So I had to be very, very specific and very careful with it. And so I had one show with a few of these pieces, just, I was like, oh, I'm going to have a show, I'll put these pieces up. I had some other paintings that I was showing as well. These paintings, people flipped out over these, and I was very surprised by it. I thought, oh, people will be interested in these, but no, people like, no, that's my favorite. I love that. So I did a series of prints and sold limited edition prints on them. But you could see there's a few of them behind me. These are the originals.
Nice.
I'm actually doing, I'm going to be doing maybe about 4 or 5 more, and then having a show probably next spring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was about to ask you if this is an ongoing series or if it's those, I think there were 5 online. I'm not sure, but.
Yeah, I actually have a few more that I've created, and I'm also going to go and start working with equine anatomy, right? So some of the horse statues with some of the gods and goddesses I'm going to incorporate, which will be a lot of fun.
And there's a week-long anatomy and clay class that's taught.
Yes. Yes. Oh, definitely. I would love to sign up for that at some point. Yeah. There's actually on your podcast, I was doing a little research. I signed up for her class. Her name is Courtney.
Yep.
I think it's Courtney Molino.
Yep.
And she does the horse body work.
Yep.
I'm actually going to be doing that.
That's great. There you
go. I grew up with horses, so that's my next step in my body work, is I'm going to start working on horses.
Fantastic.
Yeah, I'm so excited about that.
So Kat Butler's recipe, or if you could kind of just wave your wand and, let everybody in the world know a couple of things about how to take better care of themselves and to go about this life more in tune with the energy in their body, what would be your sort of final thoughts for our audience about just good upbeat messages to send along?
What I would tell people is listen to your body. Pain is not a bad thing, right? The pain sensors going off in your body are telling you something. They're indicators that you need help. Something is going on, and that it doesn't mean it's some catastrophic thing, but it's something that's going on in the myofascial system, something that needs to be addressed, and you can heal your own body. It's not out of your hands, right? It is not out of your own hands. That is what I try to teach all of my clients. Like, we're doing this so we can get you to a level where you can just completely do this on your own, and if you need to come in, you come back in, we work on you, we keep this going. But yeah, your own health is not out of your hands, right? You can heal yourself. Listen to your body, listen to your emotions, but also don't suppress them. Don't suppress them, right? Ask for help when you need it, but realize that all of the tools you need are pretty simple, and they're waiting for you if you're ready to listen. So
Fantastic. Well, Kat Butler, thank you so much for your time today, and thanks for all you do in making the world a better place.
well, thank you. You're so welcome.